This is one of the most debated things in the action figure community. Even your favorite creators are mixed up about this. So, what do you think?
The price point, I think alone makes this a really good question, but also makes it hard to answer. And what makes it harder is that I don't have...
This guy is close, but in the grand scheme of it, I do prefer this one over this one.
Definitely not McFarlane Toys.
What? It's not even a question.
Articulation mid, paint mid, sculpt mid, everything about it's mid, man. And who the fuck even likes these figures? Fig talk? You gotta be fucking...
This is the $80 Mafex Spider-Man, and this is the $50 Maximum Series Spider-Man. Nearly identical, massively controversial. So you know what? Let's decide this once and for all. Which one of these two belongs in your collection? For this comparison, I'm not gonna pull any punches. I've owned these two figures for a while now. Although, I did get Mafex first before the Maximum. Nonetheless, I've used them both for stop motion animation and pushed these figures to their very limits. So I'm gonna compare both of these with no bullshit about, oh, it's a new figure. No, we're paying $80 and $50 for each of these, so there's no excuses this time. I will compare these two the same way I compare in my Bootleg Chronicles videos, where I compare the bootlegs to their original copies, except with a few tweaks, with the first being durability, which will cover both UC issues, basically the figure itself, you know, on its own. Next up is accessories. What else are we paying for? We're not just paying for the figure, right? Justify the price, basically. Articulation, you know, poses, like, it's very important for this character because it's Spider-Man. It's one of the most acrobatic and flexible heroes in the Marvel Universe. So Spider-Man's articulation is very important in his action figures. And lastly, the price. Well, Marvelous. Yeah, duh. You'll get Maximum because it's cheaper. It's like $30 way cheaper. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about which one is actually worth their price. The cheaper one between these two is obvious. It's the Maximum. But is it worth its price? If we come to the verdict at the end of the video that this isn't worth its price, wouldn't you just save a little bit more for a couple more weeks to just reach up to $80 to get the Mafex? That's my comparison criteria. I did take out accuracy. Why? Because they are portraying different Spider-Mans, and frankly, you can barely pinpoint which one. There's been so many. People say, oh, these are both McFarlane. Narrow webs, yes, but the eyes, it's from different artists, so yeah, it doesn't really work that way. So let's open these bad boys up and check their durability. So let's start off with durability. On the Mafex side of things, it is fairly durable, especially for an import figure. For those people who are gonna say, oh, the Mafex is definitely more fragile, you're right, but you're also wrong. I've been animating this thing for like 6 months now and I haven't had any issues. It kind of just falls onto you on how you take care of your figures. If something's too stiff that should move, add some oil or put it in a bit of hot water, and that's about it. The Mafex is a fairly durable figure, except for the paint. The paint has started to wear off, especially on the arms. I've heard that this is a very common issue, which is not a good sign for an expensive figure such as this. So that is pretty disappointing. But other than that, it is very durable. Although, compared to the Maximum Series Spider-Man, there is no competition. Why is that? A lot of Marvel Legends, specifically this one, are designed for ages 4 and up. So it's designed with little kids in mind. Be honest, would you let your little cousin touch your figures? Fuck no. Although, Marvel Legends are designed for kids. So because of that, it's a lot more durable, it can handle a lot of pressure and articulation, and it can last a decent amount. And there hasn't been any paint issues unlike the Mafex, because it is specifically designed for kids, so it can handle a lot more than your average Mafex figure. What I do have to note is that you do need to give this figure a warm water bath, because some joints are gummy. I have had that issue on the diaphragm joint. Other than that, that's really the only issue for the Maximum Series Spider-Man. Though both of them are durable in articulation, for the long run, the Marvel Legends does take the point on this round. Now, for the accessories, basically what else are you going to be paying for and how much of it is basically useless? On the Mafex side of things, you get 4 extra pairs of Spider-Man hands and another pair of magnetic hands and feet, along with 2 pairs of webs, 1 long, 1 short, and another 2 webs for attaching onto stuff and 1 to hold for swinging poses. An extra head, which is barely different from the normal head, and of course the standard Mafex stand. What I do especially like the most for the Mafex are the magnetic pairs of hands and feet, which adds a ton of play potential. Overall, Mafex has provided the appropriate amount of accessories for Spider-Man. It does lack one, which is the unmasked head sculpt, which they already have, by the way. On the other hand, the Maximum Series Spider-Man gives you 4 extra pairs of hands. I don't count the naked hands, mostly because it doesn't even articulate. An alternate head, which is also barely different from the normal head. An unmasked head sculpt, which is a spider sense effect, which is a nice touch. A web similar to the Mafex to grab someone, although there aren't really any pegs for you to attach a figure to. The splooge web. Yes, that's pretty much what this is. A web shield, which does remind me of the Web of Shadows game, which is pretty cool. And 2 flimsy-ass long webs, which are pretty much useless because of the lack of wire, unlike the Mafex, which are sturdy, so you know what it's supposed to be for. So how much of these accessories are useless? In the right lighting, you can pull off the intent of this head, which is 1 squinting, like a confused or 1 squinting eye effect, but it's so subtle that it's barely any different. Overall, the Mafex has the appropriate amount of accessories. It is missing one though, which is the unmasked head sculpt. And does Mafex have any useless accessories? No. Oh, not exactly. You see, both the Mafex and the Maximum Spider-Man suffer with the barely different head sculpt. Except on the Mafex side, it's infinitely worse. I'm not sure if this issue is universal, but on my copy, the mad head sculpt is weirdly matted and doesn't match the body of the figure, which is weird. Other than that, it's fine. It's up to you. But to me, this head sculpt is pretty much useless because when I do try to make him look mad, there's barely a difference. So there's that. However, on the Maximum Series Spider-Man, it does have a lot of useless accessories. First off, these flimsy webs. Yes, it's cool for him to hold, but it can't hold anything else. And since you can't pose him like at all, or it's not sturdy, so there's not a lot you can do with these. Unless you have something to tie to, nothing. And another web that's practically useless is the sploot. It even has its own stand, which makes no sense. You already have a pair of whip hands, especially for shooting webs, and now you add this? Why would you even display it like this? The only thing you could really do with this is make memes. Another one are the naked hands. Okay, I'm gonna admit, it is a pretty cool display feature. I have displayed it with these before. However, it cannot articulate. I don't understand why, because this would actually be a great accessory. And they just fumbled it by not giving it any articulation. And for those saying, oh, it's way bigger than the normal hands, sort of, but it's not really something that's very noticeable. So yes, I do deem this as useless. Other than that, this set is pretty jam-packed with accessories. Could have used the camera or something instead of the splooge, but it's pretty good. By the way, side nitpick, the mismatched whip hands for the ones without a web fucking sucks. Anywho, so comparing them side to side on accessories, the Mafex does lose on one thing, which is the unmasked head sculpt. However, as a Spider-Man figure, you would most likely pose him as Spider-Man. Even if the unmasked head sculpt is a nice option for the Maximum Series Spider-Man, just look at him. Ew. It's decent, perfectly accurate, yeah, it could use some work. So for both sides, even if the Maximum Series Spider-Man does give you a lot of options, the Mafex still has the upper hand. Because the Mafex does successfully give you what you need from a Spider-Man. So comparing the accessories from the Maximum Series and the Mafex side by side, even if technically Maximum Series Spider-Man does give you a lot of accessories, a lot of them you won't use either, if we're gonna be honest. The splooge effect, other than making jokes about it, can't use it. The flimsy webs, cool, but you can't pose it or anything. The unmasked hands cannot articulate, just mainly for display. And even if I didn't state this accessory as useless, you don't really get a lot of options with this grab web because it's way too short, first of all, and it doesn't attach to anything, which limits what you can do with this thing, which are pretty much none. So basically, you're paying $50 to have 20% of the accessories be useless. But Mafex gives the appropriate amount of accessories for a Spider-Man, and an added bonus such as the magnetic hands and feet, which do add so much potential for its playability. And not only that, Mafex also gives you a stand. And despite not having an unmasked head sculpt, you just want Spider-Man, right? You're buying this for Spider-Man. So for me, this is pretty okay. Not only that, the webs actually have use for web shooting, for web grabbing, for web swinging, which you can pair with the Mafex stand. And you can actually pose him swinging in your display. So basically, the Maximum Spider-Man does give you some nice accessories, but a good chunk of them are pretty much useless. They're nice, but useless. While Mafex gives you what you need and a little bit more. So that's why for this round on accessories, Mafex does indeed get the point. Now for the articulation. So we all know both of these figures are great in articulation, but what's actually important is that they can pull off the iconic Spider-Man poses that they are pretty much required to be able to do. So I chose these three poses. Pose number 1 is the iconic perch pose. Pose number 2 is shooting a web in between the legs pose. And pose number 3 is just plain old landing pose. Now for pose 1. Both figures can do it pretty easily. While both having difficulty folding their legs all the way, they can still do it. With a little bit more difficulty on the Maximum Series Spider-Man though. Despite that, they can pull off the pose very well. What I am gonna note is that the Mafex can give the more natural look between the two. With how the Maximum Series Spider-Man butterfly joints are designed, its butterfly joints can only go forward and backward. Now you'd think, oh, that's pretty much all you need, but compared to the Mafex, which is on a ball joint, it can make poses such as this look more natural. So it's a tie, but I do like how more natural it looks for the Mafex. Now for shooting the web in between the legs. Both of these figures had a hard time doing this pose. What had it harder is the Maximum Series. Now, why is that? It's because the Mafex has one leg up, which are double ball joints for the diaphragm and the waist, which can push the limits way farther than the diaphragm ab crunch combo that Maximum has. Because Maximum, the diaphragm can take care of the side to side and the twists, while the ab crunch takes care of the fold. But now what if you need to twist your hips? That's where the Maximum Spider-Man struggled a lot. So in this round, I know I'm not really experienced in posing. The Maximum Series Spider-Man still struggled in this regard. So I am giving it to the Mafex. Now for pose 3, landing pose, it is a tie because it's a pretty simple pose, so both of them should be able to do it. Yeah, there aren't really any criticisms from me here. They can both do it. So now between the two, which one of these actually has the better articulation? To no surprise, Mafex wins the articulation round. The Maximum articulation does cut it close, but with the limitations of the non-ball jointed hands and feet and the lack of a waist swivel and the lack of a waist ball joint, it struggles and poses more than the Mafex, which can do it much easily. So for this round in Articulation, Mafex gets the point. Now for the conclusion. This was a very tough decision. Both figures have their strengths and weaknesses, but they're pretty much equal. They're both very good figures. But what we are talking about is the price, not the price of which one is cheaper, because it's obvious the Maximum Series Spider-Man is indeed cheaper. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about which one is more worth your money. To me, the difference is around $20-$30. Not a small difference, don't get me wrong. It's not a huge difference either, because if you're saving up for the Mafex, you can just save up for a little while longer. And for the Maximum, despite being cheaper, does come with a lot of unnecessary stuff. Before I get to my decision, this was actually genuinely tough to think about. They're basically the same at different price points. No, I'm not counting the designs because that's very subjective. I'm just talking about when you buy either of these, you're basically getting the same thing. So which one do you get? The Mafex? The so-called pinnacle of import Spider-Man figures? Or should you get the Maximum Series Spider-Man, which is Marvel Legends' best attempt at making an import figure? In my opinion, after hearing the opinions of the other creators, Reddit, and looking at it myself, playing with them for a couple months now, which one is truly worth your money? To me, the answer is But before that, let's give special thanks to our channel members. No, I'm just kidding. The answer is the Mafex 185 comic Spider-Man. Now, why did I choose this figure? To me, from what I see, the Maximum Series Spider-Man is Marvel Legends' best attempt, as of now, of making an import-level Spider-Man with what they have in their disposal. And to me, it's just not there yet. Imports are just on a different level. Marvel Legends are, a lot of the time, still just not import level. And we both gotta realize that. Despite being cheaper between the two, Marvel Legends, this is pretty fucking expensive. It's just not there yet, because these are basically the bare minimum of what we should be getting. Because most Spider-Man figures only give you whip hands and closed fist hands, while this should be the default. A great example of a perfect Marvel Legends Spider-Man is the Amazing Fantasy 15. It gives you the right amount of hands, which match, by the way, these two don't match. Webs that you can actually use, because the web thing, there's actually uses for this. What I actually did with this one, I hanged this on something and made Spider-Man hold this, and I created this picture, which is cool as shit. So this actually has a purpose, unlike these. Yes, you can hold them, but flimsy and really has no purpose. This is cool. I'm gonna give them that. You can definitely use this. This, 50-50. Yeah, it's okay. And this is just splooge. Meanwhile, Amazing Fantasy 15 gives you one of these, a couple web wings, which you probably won't use. Still a nice gimmick though, for $25 retail. And somehow, in accessories wise, it's better than this. Because you can actually use them. So it's actually pretty crazy that the Amazing Fantasy 15 gives you all the hands you need, basically everything you need, actually useful webs, for $25. The only thing that this thing lacks is a toe joint. But other than that, this is and what the Maximum Series Spider-Man could have been. But despite that, let me show you this. The Amazing Fantasy 15, if you apply it to Maximum Spider-Man, gives you these for $25. Maybe like a web. Let's make this as an example. And the web wings. It gives you that. And these are apparently worth the extra $25, which is just no. For a Marvel Legends level figure, no. What do you mean these things are worth $25 extra. If you really want a Marvel Legends Spider-Man that's worth your money, get the Amazing Fantasy 15. But this, I do not recommend as a Marvel Legends Spider-Man. Because, look, this is technically what Amazing Fantasy 15 gives. Except for the toe joints, that's it. That's $25 right there. So these are worth the extra $25? Fuck no. So to me, if you really want a Marvel Legends level Spider-Man, get this, not this. If you can afford it, sure, get it. But really, this is actually somehow better. Like I said earlier, I'm not talking about design because that's very subjective. So why did Mafex win? Gives you what you need that's actually useful, the webs and stuff, with a really high quality figure. Although the paint chips QC is annoying, this is still an amazing figure. You cannot deny that. And for the price point of $80, multiple stands, a ton of webs that you can actually use, not this, this is more worth your money. For this sculpt and articulation, these are accessories, and these magnet hands and feet, by the way, I still love these. It is infinitely worth more than the Maximum Spider-Man. Because look, this is $80. This, if you combine these, is $80, but somehow you can get these for $25 with a different design. So it's just insane. Like, even if you say, oh, you're paying for the better sculpt, it can do this pose just as well, even if it does like the toe joints. So is this really worth the $50 when you can get this for $25? That's what led me to my decision. So if you're already at $50, don't take this. If you like the design, I'm not gonna fight you on that. But if you're already on $50 and mixed between these two, I suggest paying more, saving up more for an objectively better figure. Well, in my opinion. So what do you guys think? Which one is better? The Maximum Series Spider-Man or the Mafex Spider-Man? If you still need help deciding, here is the full clip of the opinions of other creators that I showed in the beginning of this video.
Hey buddy, so the big question, Maximum versus Mafex Spider-Man. I don't have the Maximum Spider-Man, so opinion kind of disqualified, but I do have plenty of Mafex figures, and I can say without a shadow of a doubt that I love them. They're literally my favorite brand, so I'm gonna roll with Mafex on this one.
So when it comes to these two, I do like the OG Mafex Spider-Man better because it comes with a better Peter Parker head, and just the overall shoulder mobility is kind of what, you know, takes the cake for me, because compared to this, it only moves side to side. You can't really, you know, do that kind of like rolling shoulder movement. But this guy is close, but in the grand scheme of it, I do prefer this one over this one.
Definitely not McFarlane Toys. Yeah, that's crazy, but listen to this. They've had this shit for 5 years. 5 years with this DC license, and they've turned out nothing but ass dick cheese. Articulation mid, paint mid, sculpt mid, everything about it's mid, man. And who the fuck even likes these figures? Fig talk? You gotta be fucking kidding me, man. I'm outta here.
I definitely think Maximum is better though. Just because it's half the price and you still get everything you need. Less quality control issues too, only real issues you had was a bit of paint effects. Better than breaking joints or paint shipping. As well as me not being a big fan of the skinny feet and hands. Yeah, like Marvel Legends never usually have quality control issues besides a bit of paint or the mold not being new or whatever. Maybe some older ones that like tight joints and such, but that's always an easy fix. You're also only breaking what? A $20 to $50 action figure. Better than breaking a $100 action figure. Also sometimes there's easier ways to fix any broken parts like Marvel Legends on pieces. You could use the screw joint method. Can't exactly do that with Mafex. So if you want any pointers for the videos, feel free to use anything I have said.
And special thanks to my channel members, Cold Collects, Spider, Metal Bricks, Glugper Animations, Hayden, Ant Keys, it's RTX_, and Dark Cola. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. Also, special thanks to Matt, who edited this video for me. So yeah, that's pretty much it. See ya. You're still here?